Hi, Archana. Actually, I'm not able to show my presentation over here, and I have click on the
Good evening, everybody. I welcome you all for the Knowledge Tuesday session. I'm Archana from HTIC MedTech Incubator hosting this session. Before we start, I would request all the participants to be on mute and kindly unmute yourself while you speak. We have also created a feedback form for this session, so requesting all the participants to fill the form at the end of the session for us to improve the upcoming Knowledge Tuesday sessions. For the today's Knowledge Tuesday session, we have the speaker, Mr. Siddharth Jain, CEO and Chief Medical Device Regulatory Affair Advisor, Symbiorph Clinical Trialogy. And the topic for today's session is medical device and IVD CE certification requirements. Over to you, Siddharth. My colleague Sumitra
Yeah.
will be sharing the screen now.
Okay. Sure. Okay. Yeah. Good evening to all. So the today's topic it will be for all the startup those who would like to enter the European market. If they are the manufacturers of the medical devices or the in vitro diagnostic devices. So how to enter the European market? What are the all the regulatory requirements with respect to entering into the European market? What are the steps to be followed to enter into the European market? We are going to discuss during our today's sessions on, and we call this session as the C certifications requirement or process for the medical devices as per the requirement of MDR 2017/745 and the requirement of IVDR 2017/746. I will be taking care of both these regulations in depth in our further slides. Yeah. So I just give you a brief background about myself that I am having around 9 year, more than 9 years of experience in the medical device regulations, and we are helping the all the medtech startups in conducting the clinical validations, in getting the all the regulatory compliancing for the European market, for the Indian market, and also for the USA market. And beside that, we are also helping the manufacturers in doing the marketing of their devices in the Indian continent also. Yeah, so now I will be taking care of what you mean by CE certifications and why it is important for all the medical device startups who would like to market their product either into the Indian market, or if they want to sell their product into the other European or other regulated markets. So what do you mean by the CE certification? CE marking is the medical device manufacturer's claim that a product meets the essential requirement of all relevant European medical device regulations. So currently, if you are a manufacturer of a medical devices, or if you are a manufacturer of in vitro diagnostics, then you have to follow the requirement of MDR 2017/745 and plus the requirement of IVDR 2017/746. These are the two major requirements which any of the manufacturers they have to fulfill if they would like to enter the European market, or if once they get the C certification, they can also able to sell their product into the other non-European market also. Yeah, so you might be seeing that you have seen this type of CE logo in most of the medical devices. So they had the fixed length, breadth, and dimensions that all the manufacturers who have received the CE certifications or who has applied for getting the CE certifications, they have to follow the certain dimensions only. So this is what the CE certifications mark look like. So many of you also know about that there are different classifications of the medical devices as per the CE. Either it will be a class 1, class 2, or class 3. So all the products, all the devices which are class 1, you won't be seeing any notified body number. So, and all the products which are class 2A, 2B, and class 3, you will be going to see a notified body number below the CE mark. Yeah. So I will be taking care about the older requirements, because before coming the new requirement of MDR 2017/745, earlier the older requirements for the C certifications was the MDD. MDD stands for the Medical Device Directive. So prior to 21st of May or 26th of May 2020, the MDD requirements we have to follow. But since many of the circumstances happen worldwide, which I will be taking care of, because of that, the MDD requirement has become superseded, and it become the requirement what we call it IVDR or MDR requirements. So what do you mean by medical device directive? The medical device directive is intended to harmonize the laws relating to medical devices within the European Union. The Medical Device Directive is a new approach directive, and consequently, in order for manufacturers to legally place a medical device on the European market. So it means that if you would like to legally market or legally place your product into the European market, the C certifications is one of the mandatory requirement. So if you are a manufacturer of medical devices or in vitro diagnostic or an active implantable medical devices, so these are the older requirements. So why the new requirement has came, what made the European Commissions to think into it that we need to revise this medical device directive to a new requirement, what we now call it a medical device regulations. Yeah. So now the PIP scandal has happened. Now, way back in 2003, the PIP scandal has happened. The one of the company based out in USA and in Europe, they are the manufacturers of the silicon-based breast implant, and they have received the C certifications for their breast implant, which are made from the silicon. And but as per the requirement of the C certifications, because the breast implants, it will going to be get implanted into the patients. So it should be manufactured from the medical grade silicon raw materials. But what happened that manufacturers initially at the time of audit, they have shown to the auditors that they are using the medical grade silicon raw material during the manufacturing of their breast implant. But once they receive the C certifications, they have started using the industrial grade silicons for the manufacturing of breast implant. And when all the patients are getting implanted, because with the industrial grade breast implants, various type of adverse events and deaths have started occurring worldwide. And because of higher number of adverse events going to be get received at the US FDA and other various competent authorities, a vigilance system was called, and again a surprise inspection was called to that company. And when the surprise inspection was called, it was found that that PIP company, that silicon breast implant manufacturing company, was not using the medical grade silicon raw material, but instead they are using the industrial grade. And because of this PIP scandal, the European Commission, they thought that there was a huge lacuna in the system of auditing the manufacturing companies who are going for the C certifications. Because of all these reasons, the older requirement of MDD 93/42 has been revised to a new requirement, what now we call it a requirement of MDR 2017/745, plus with the requirement of in vitro diagnostic 2017/745. Because of the PIP scandal, the European Commission, they had taken a stand that they want to revise the entire regulations for the C certifications. And because of that PIP scandal, the new requirement has now come up. And so from 26th of May 2020, this requirement has become implemented. Now, the EU MDR requirements, because of this overall safety concerns which they have seen because of the PIP scandal, they have come up with a new regulatory frameworks, which I have already discussed, the MDR 2017 and IVDR 2017/746. So what are the main important points which the European Commissions they have focused while they have drafted this MDR requirements? It was an extension scope of the medical device regulations to cosmetics and aesthetic devices also. Earlier, the cosmetics devices are not covered under the MDD requirements, but now with the requirement of IVDR and MDR, all the cosmetic and aesthetic devices will now covered under the requirement of MDR. So all the manufacturers of cosmetic and aesthetic devices, they now need to go for the C certification also. Now, most stringent requirement for compliance from the manufacturers to ensure the patient safety has been introduced in the MDR requirements. So what the major changes has happened that all the manufacturers, irrespective of the classifications, whether it's a class 1, 2 or 3, they need to have their own clinical validation data with respect to their product. So they need to have the safety, efficacy, and performance data with respect to their product if they would like to go for the C certifications. This is the new requirement introduced by the European Commission under the MDR requirements. Now, further that, they have also introduced the greater transparency in the entire supply chain. What does it mean, the greater transparency? Earlier in the older requirements, there was no any requirement to go ahead and have an agreement with the importer, distributor, and the authorized representative. So there was no any system in place to either have a product recall or to know that what type of product are introduced into the European Commission or into the European market. So because of that, of to have a more transparency into the system, what the European Commission they have done that they to the entire supply chain, starting from the authorized representative, importer, distributor, and the retailer, you should have the entire traceability and the agreement with each and every stakeholders of your devices in the European, if you want to sell your product into the European market. So you have to have an agreement with the authorized representative, you should have an agreement with the importer, you should also have an agreement with the distributor also. And all this agreement should be submitted during the time of audit, or if you don't have a executed agreement, you have to submit the draft agreement copy of the importer, distributor, and the authorized representative during the audit. Further to that, they have also introduced an EU portal where manufacturers would require to report any serious events or corrective action to reduce the risk of recurrence. So it means that they have now introduced more sophisticated and more detailed vigilance system, and we call it a UDAMED requirement. So this is the new requirement which is introduced, where is any type of adverse events or the product recall which is going to be received for your product, you have to intimate to the authorized representative and the respective competent authority within the time frame of 10 days, because depending upon the severity of the recall and the nature of the adverse events, the European Commission and under the MDR requirement, they have formulated the different timelines to intimate or to notify the adverse event to the respective competent authorities. So here, what you mean by the competent authorities? Competent authority means, suppose you have sell your product into the German market and you have received any adverse events from the Germany. So in that case, Germany will be your competent authority. So you have to report all the adverse event to the German health commission or the German health authority. So in that case, depending upon the competent authority where you are marketing your product, you should have a well established understanding about the product, about the system, about the vigilance system of that particular country, and then accordingly you have to go for the product recall, or you have to issue the advisory notice accordingly. Also, in the new requirement, they have also increased the right and responsibility for the notified bodies for the monitoring of all the medical devices. What does it mean? That it means that once your company has been C certified, so the notified body who you have been appointed, they can come for a surprise unannounced audits without informing to you. They can come at any point, 365 days. They can come any point of time to do an surprise inspection, and you cannot deny to do this audit. If any other manufacturer deny to carry out this unannounced audits, so their certificate, the C certificate, on immediate basis, the notified body has the right to cancel or suspend. So these are the major 4 or 5 new requirements which were introduced by the European Commissions to have a more stringent requirement, so that no more PRIP like scandal can happen to the European markets. Now, as I told you earlier that the deadline was 26th of May 2020 to implement this new requirement of MDR plus IVDR. But because of this COVID situation, they have extended the requirement to more 1 year to May 26, 2021. I just misspelled over here. It is 26th of May 2021. So right now, the most of the manufacturers, they startup, they have a 1 year of buffer timeline. If they would like to go for the C certifications, they can get their C certificates. Another requirement of older requirement, what we call it, MDD requirements. If you are a manufacturer of the in vitro diagnostic devices, so it will going to take effect from the 26th of May 2022. So you have more 2 years if you are a manufacturer of in vitro diagnostic devices to go for the C certifications as per the requirement of IVDR. So depending upon the strategy, all the startup which you have right now, if your product is ready right now, enter to the market, so you can immediately apply for the C certifications and under the MDD requirement. Reason being that the cost difference between the MDD to MDR requirement is around 30 to 40%. It means that if you want to go for a C certifications under the requirement of MDR, you have to sell out 40% more money for getting your product C certified. So if your product is ready right now, either the medical device or in vitro diagnostic device, so you can currently think to go for a C certifications under the older requirement. So you can save at least around 30 to 40% of your C certifications cost. So yeah, so what are the key stakeholders for getting you the C certifications? So one of the very key stakeholders is manufacturers and the subcontractors. Since currently I am talking to only the startups right now, so the startup, they might not have their own manufacturing facility, so they are right now dependent on the subcontractors to manufacture their products. So in that case, also there was a requirement that if a subcontractors has or have their ISO 13485 plus the startup is they have the 2485 requirement, they can able to apply for the C certifications also on the basis of subcontractors. So in that case, the facility audit will be carried out at the subcontractors manufacturing facility. Now, the second important stakeholder is the competent authority. So as I already talked to you about that, there are the various notified bodies depending upon the competent authorities, like the German notified bodies, there are the Norwegian notified bodies, there are the Ireland notified bodies. So there are the different notified bodies depending upon the competent authorities we can able to apply. Now, the third and the very important key stakeholder is the notified body. Without the notified body involvement, you cannot even get the C certification or the 13485. So the selection of notified body is very important right now, because in India only 2 or 3 good and reputed notified bodies are present. Some of the notified bodies like the DQS is a German notified body, TU Sud is again a German notified body, TU Renlen is again a German notified body. So only a couple of notified bodies are present right now in India who has a capacity to do the audit as per the requirement of both MDD and the MDR requirements. So the selection or notified body is very important, because your fate of getting enter into the European market in the correct timeline is very important only when you have chosen the correct notified bodies, because there are notified bodies who will take 2 years to give you the C certification. Also, they are notified body who are very speedy in nature. They can able to give you the C certification in within a 1 year. So if we talk about a timeline, the accurate timeline for getting a C certification is you have to wait till around 9 to 11 months is the minimum timeline you have to devote if you would like to go for the C certifications. The fourth key stakeholder is the authorized European representative. What do you mean by authorized representative? It means that being you are a startup and you don't have your own manufacturing facility, or you don't have your own office in European Union. In that case, as per the requirement, you have to appoint the local agent over there who will be acting as a bridge between the your company, it means a manufacturing company, and a competent authority. And all type of communication like the product recall, advisory notice, and any dispute if you are having with your distributor importer, then the authorized representative will be taking care of all these activities. The fifth important stakeholder is the distributors. Yeah, it's very important. Reason being that if you don't have the distributor, you cannot able to market your product into any other country. Next slide. So I already discussed about the competent authorities. Competent authorities are the entities enforcing medical devices regulations at the national level in each EU member states. Member state and the competent authority each has their own interpretations of how MDR should be carried out. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, I already discussed about the notified body, that the notified body role will be to go for the inspections, quality assurance, and the combinations of the above. They are the responsible for issuing you the C certifications, and also the issuing of the EN ISO 13485/2016 certificate to you. The notified body, they don't going to do the consulting services to you. It is strictly forbidden by the authorities that notified body give consistency to the manufacturers due to conflict of interest involved into it. So the notified body will only do the auditing and the surprise inspection of your facility. They will not going to do or provide any type of consulting services to any of the manufacturers. So authorized representative, as I already discussed about that, if you don't have if you don't have office in the Europe, then you have to appoint an authorized representative. So the responsibility, it will be include the liaising between the manufacturers and the competent authorities, and keeping all the technical and the design dossiers available for the review by the competent authorities, because the competent authority, they have the power or the right to review any of the manufacturers, the technical file or design dossiers at any moment of time if they going to select on a random basis. Plus also they will be the point of contact during the product recall and the advisory notice. So that's why appointment of the authorized representative is very important. So steps to EU compliance. So how to go for the C certifications? What are the steps to go for the C certifications? I will be going to discuss over you right now. So the first and foremost step is to define the intended use of your device. Only once you have defined the intended use of your device, you will come to know that what will be your after you know the intended use, then you have to identify the regulations which is going to be get apply into you. The regulations mean either the MDR 2017/745 will be applicable, or the IVDR will going to be get applicable. So depending upon the intended use, only you can able to identify which regulation will be applicable to you. Once you know the regulation, then the third and very important step is to classify your device. If it's a medical devices, then you have to classify as per the requirement of class 1, 2, and 3. And if you are falling under the in vitro diagnostic, then you have to classify on the basis of class A, B, C, and D. Further to that, one of the basic requirements for C certification is that you have to implement the quality management system in compliance with the requirement of EN ISO 13485/2016. Without implementing this ISO 13485, you will not receive the C certifications. And in most of the cases, we are implementing and we are going for the audit on parallel basis, so that in a single audit, the audit of ISO 13485 will also get covered, and also for the C certification. And it will going to save considerable amount of time if you going to club both the audits in a single point. Then the next step will be to prepare the technical file and the design history file, demonstrating the compliance with the requirement of MDR and IVDR requirements. And after that, the audit will be carried out. The audit will be carried out by the notified bodies pertaining to again the requirement. And then after the audit, if any non-conformities will be raised by the competent authority or by the notified body, we have to close all these non-conformities. And then after closing all the non-conformities, then the notified body will going to issue you the C certificates. And the actual timeline for C certification validity is around 5 years. Right. Yeah. Next slide. Now, classify your devices according to the applicable regulations. So, as I already discussed, that there are mainly three class 1, 2, and 3. But if you see the regulations more in depth, the class 1 is further divided into class 1 low risk. It means that if it's a class 1, then there will be then all the devices will be self-certified. It means that there is no requirement of an external notified body will be required. If it's a class 1 with a measuring function, so we call it a class 1M medical devices. Then further, it's a class 1S medical device. It means the class 1 only sterile. And there's also a classification for class 1R. 1R means reusable surgical device. So all the devices which are going to require the any type of reusable, so you can classify them into class 1R. Further to that, class 2 will be further divided into class 2A and class 2B, depending upon the risk, medium to low risk and medium to high risk. So depending upon that, you can be able to classify your devices either into a class 2 or 2B. And then there will be a higher risk devices, what we call class C devices, and most of the cardiology and the neurology and all the spinal product will be mostly classified into class 3 medical devices. Now, what are the steps to you compliancing? So once you have classified your product, so then the next requirement is to understand the different annexures. So I will be not going in depth about what are the different annexures. I will be just giving brief that there are the different annexures like annexes 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So depending upon the different annexures, you have to select which route you have to go. Mostly for all the starters, we have to select the annexure 2. It means that full quality assurance audit will be carried out for you, both for your quality management system and also for your technical dossiers also. Next slide, please. Yeah, so as I already talked about the step, so the one of the very important step is to implement the EN ISO 13485 2016 into your system. So what do you mean by the ISO 13485? So ISO 13485, they had a different type of eight clauses for the each and every, for the HR department, for the top management, for the production department, for the quality assurance, for the auditing purpose. So the entire system you have to implement into your system, and it will be getting audited. We have to prepare different type of procedures requirement. We have to supply control, auditing purpose, kappa, all that requirement we have to fulfill over there. And at the time of audit, the auditor will become and they will going to do the audit as per that requirement. So the implementations is very important. You have to prepare the quality manual, all the humanity procedures, SOPs, quality plan for each of for your entire system. Next slide. So the next very important requirement is the clinical evaluation, or what we call it the clinical validations. So if you want to enter the European market, so as I already told you about that, you have to implement the foremost requirement is that you have to implement the MEDDEV requirement. MEDDEV is the requirement of clinical evaluations. Plus, you have to fulfill the requirement of ISO 14155, which is the clinical that you have to follow majorly two requirements if you would like to, and if you would like to go for the clinical validations. One is the MedDev 2.7.1 Revision 4, which it talks about to how to perform the clinical evaluations with the help of the clinical literatures, and also how to go for the clinical investigation route also. And the next important requirement is to ISO 14155. You have to prepare the entire clinical protocol, case record form, information brochures, and all these documents you have to submit it to the CDSO for getting it approval for the no objection certificates, and then only you are liable to go for the clinical validations. So majorly there are two type of clinical validations. Most of the startup they are doing it. We are helping them in doing the both the pilot clinical validations and also the pivotal clinical validations. Pilot clinical validation is required on only on 40 to 60 number of patients, but pivotal clinical studies typically require more than 150 patients, and it should be a multi-center studies. So depending upon the devices and depending upon the primary endpoint and secondary endpoint which we are going to select, and primary and secondary object, we have to go for the clinical investigation in that way. Yeah. And next slide. It will typically include the collection and examination of all the required scientific literatures applicable to your device. It means that you have to collect all the scientific literatures with respect to your device, and you have to prepare the data with respect to safety, efficacy, and performance. You have to collect the data, you have to read the scientific literature, and you have to prepare the clinical evaluation report with respect to the safety, efficacy, and performance. And then complete this clinical literature review for further updates to your CER. We have to complete, we have to summarize all these documents into it. And one of the very important requirement of the clinical evaluation report is that we have cross-link it with the risk management reports and the post-marketing, because various type of residual risk and risk which you are going to identify during the time of risk management or the post-marketing, you have to get it interlinked with your clinical evaluation report, and all this residual risk we have to consider when you are performing the clinical validations, either a pilot and pivotal clinical studies, or also when you are performing the clinical validations. So what I have seen with my interaction with most of the startups, whenever they are doing any type of clinical validation, validations, they have missed this point. They are not considering all the risk management input, all the residual risk which they have considered or which they have identified during the course of the design and development. They have not discussed during the time of clinical validation. So it's my request to all of the starters, whenever you are performing the clinical validations, kindly consider all the safety hazards and clinical hazards and the performance hazards into your next slide. Next slide. Uh, Next slide. Yeah. So typically, if we go about this step-by-step approach to about the risk management report, so to prepare the entire chapter over. So we have to prepare the risk management report as per the requirement of what we call it EN ISO 14971 2019 requirement, because the standard has just been revised in year 2019. So you have to prepare the risk management report considering the entire life cycle of your device. So what do you mean by the life cycle? It means that starting from the design phase to the marketing stage, you have to consider the each and every risk, and accordingly you have to prepare the risk management report. There are different ways of preparing the risk management report. Typically, we are preparing the risk management report as per the requirement of FMEA and with the requirement of PHA. PHA means the project hazard analysis and the fault tree hazard analysis. So these are the typical ways of preparing the risk management reports for each and every products, and you have to submit it and you have to prepare it as per the requirement of EN ISO 14971 2019 requirements. So the next requirement which you have to fulfill whenever you are going for a C certification is that you have to prepare the post-marketing surveillance report. And in the post-marketing surveillance report, you have to prepare the data with respect to customer feedback, customer complaint, adverse events, potential adverse events, the data of the competitors from the different databases. You have to analyze during the type of post-marketing surveillance, and it should be kept audited. So the post-marketing surveillance should be a proactive. So it should be not just that you have conducted this type of studies once a time. You have to collect all the data with respect to your customer feedback, customer complaint on a regular frequency of time, and you have to update your post-marketing surveillance report accordingly. And once you have updating your post-marketing surveillance report, and if you have identified any new, just listen, any new or potentially new adverse events, so you have to again revise your risk management report, because post-marketing surveillance is entirely with the risk management report. If any new type of adverse events which you have identified, you have to again revise your risk management report. So and then accordingly you have to prepare the you have to keep on revising your post-marketing surveillance and keep on implementing to all the regions wherever you are marketing your products. Yeah. Next slide. One and very important requirement which after interacting with many other startups, they have missed this requirement completely, is about the usability engineering, or what we call it a human factor engineering, because the human factor engineering comes during the time of design review phase. If you see the entire cycle of the design and development, from the design planning, input, output, after the output stage, then the design review stage will come. And in the design review stage, the human factor engineering, or what we call it the usability engineering, as per the requirement of IEC 62366 2015 requirement, you had to fulfill. Now the standard has just revised 2 days back only. Now the IEC 62366 2020 version has already been came up. So all the startups, they had to fulfill the current new requirement of 62366. So in the new requirement, you have to do both the formative evaluation and this pre-summative and summative testings of your prototype which you had developed. So a well detailed planning or the human factor engineering or the usability engineering you have to prepare, and then accordingly you have to carry out the human factor engineering report with the help of few other doctors or the clinical advisors who are into your team. And without completing this usability engineering phase or the design review phase in depth, it will be going to be very difficult at the time of CE audit to convince the auditors. So it's my request, kindly read this standard very carefully and start implementing this standard at the design review stage only. And I have seen that most of the startups, they have completely ignored the standard or they are not aware about the standard. So you have to implement the standard in depth. Yeah, so the next slide it is. Next slide, please. Yeah. So the biological evaluations. So you have to prepare the biological risk evaluations report as per the requirement of what we call it a 10993 series standards. And there are total 22 standards starting from 10993-1 to -22. There are different series of standards, and depending upon the degree of risk to the patients of for your device, accordingly the test like the what we call it a cytotoxicity test, irritation test, implantation test, various type of animal testings, and the leachability test and the toxicity test, we have to carry it out with the help of external laboratories. And we have to carry out these testings on the final finished product. Listen, it should be a final finished product so that you have already fixed your design, everything, parameters, product dimension, everything. Only on your final finished product, you have to perform this type of validation studies. And if we talk about in terms of the design phases, from the design planning, input, output, review, and the design verification. So the biological evaluation is typically came at a time of a bench testing where we are doing the animal validations of your products. So whether your product is a non-contact or going to be contact with the patients during either a limited duration of time or a prolonged duration of time or long-term duration of time, you have to prepare a detailed biological risk evaluation report, and then only you can able to justify that whether you need to go for this type of testings or you have to exclude. But having a report is very important. So you have to prepare the entire biological risk evaluation report, and then you have to carry out this type of testings. Yeah. So the next slide, please. Yeah. So the next very important document whenever if you product require the sterilization, like there are different type of sterilizations. I am talking about the ETO sterilization. So ETO should be they had a standard particularly called the ISO 11135. So 2014 version. So this particular standard that whether all the bacterial bioburden on your product, whether it's going to be get achieved or not, whether the killing of the bacterial bioburden onto your product is achieving or not. So you have to validate your process with the help of the method called the oral kill approach. So you have to follow the ISO 1135214 version, and you have to carry out the process challenge, device selections, reference load selection, protocol generations, final report. So there are different methods of doing it. There are different steps of doing the validation. So you have to prepare a very exhaustive document starting from the SOP of ATO sterilization, then the protocol, then plan, and then accordingly a report will be prepared for the ETO validations. If your product doesn't require any ETO validations, so if they might be requiring the some other type of sterilizations called the gamma sterilizations. So if you are going to if you would like to go for a gamma sterilization, if your product needed, then according to that standard, you have to validate the gamma validations for that product. Yeah. Next slide. Yeah. So one of the very important things is the packaging validations also. We have to submit the entire document of packaging validations also during the time of C certifications audit. So we have to follow again the requirement of ISO EN ISO 11607-1 and 11607-2 requirements. And plus we have to prepare the validation protocols, and you have to perform the what we call it a packaging integrated testings as per the requirement of ASTM standards. There are various ASTM standards which we have to comply with it, either the dye penetration or the bubble leak or visual inspections. Plus we have to also go for the shield strength testings. The shield strength testings we have to go again as per the requirement of ASTM F80A and plus ASTM F204 5. So all this requirement, all these stability all perform, and we have to submit it to determine the shelf life of your product. So if your product is having a shelf life of 5 years, so you have to also have to perform the accelerated aging studies and real-time stability studies. Being a startup company, you cannot able to submit all the 5 years data of the real-time stability studies. So reason being that you have to submit the accelerated aging studies as per the requirement of ASTM F1980. If you read the standard very carefully, talk about the RNS equations. So if your shelf life of your product is 5 years, so depending upon the RNS equation, you have to calculate the accelerated aging study timeline. So typically it will vary from 2 months to 6 months. Depending upon that, you have to keep the samples for the stability studies testing for the under the accelerated aging studies. Also, one of the very important requirement is the transfer validation studies as per the requirement of again the ASTM D4169. So here you are just seeing that I am written the ASTM standard for each and everything. So if you are fulfilling all the ASTM standard in a correct way, and if we substantiate our reports with all the evidence, then at the time of audit you will not going to receive any type of either a major or a minor non-conformity with respect to packaging validation. So all the notified bodies, they are keep on repeating that you have to only follow this particular standards. So it's my request to all the startups, just read all the standards and try to fulfill the packaging validations from the very beginning. Or you have to design your packaging validations or packaging type, keeping the requirement of all these particular standards. So the next slide, please. So the new requirement which is currently coming up is the medical device labeling requirements. We call it a UDI. Which is a new requirement coming up. UDI means the unique device identifications. So in unique device identifications in India, the company which present in India to give you the UDI is GS1, and is having an office in New Delhi. You can able to contact them directly, and you can get the unique device identification code for your products. So UDI is further divided into a UDI DI and UDI PI. UDI DI means device identification number, and UDI PI means product identification number. So UDI is a mixture of UDI DI plus UDI PI is equal to UDI. So you have to define your of MDR, and then you have to approach to GS1 to issue you this UDI number, and then you can able to have all this barcoding or UDI number onto your labels. So this is currently the new requirement released by the European Commission to fulfill. Next slide, please. So what we have to do, what are the typical content. So you had to have the catalog numbers, material specifications, lot numbers, expiration date, instructions, serialization, logos. You have to fulfill the requirement of symbols as per the requirement of EN ISO 15223. You might be seeing on the label that there are various symbols present onto it. So from where all these symbols came? All these symbols came from the requirement of EN ISO 15223-116 version. So if you read the standard very carefully, you will able to know that what all applicable symbols will be required for your products, because all symbols will not be required for your products. Only few symbols will be required. So you have to clearly read the standard, and accordingly you have to draft your label with the appropriate symbols into it. Plus, you have to follow the requirement of 21 CFR 801 and 21 CFR 830. But if you would like to sell your product into the USA market, and also the language translations and other things are the requirements, which typically is the requirement which you have to fulfill also. So this is a typical requirement to prepare a medical device label if you would like to enter European markets. Next slide, please. Next slide. So the role of economic operators. So I already talked you about the role of economic the role of so Mitra, can you just go back? You are just skip 2 slides. Sumitra, can you go back to uh, uh, can you go back? Yeah, after this. Yeah, the role of economic operators, as I already talked to you about that, the role of economic operators, which include the manufacturers, distributors. Next slide. So, Mitra, next slide, the economic operators like the role of the economic operators, which I already talked about, the all the distributors, importers, and everything. So the currently the new requirement also states about the requirement of the person responsible for regulatory compliance. So what do you mean by the person responsible for regulatory compliance? It means that most of the startup, they don't have the regulatory affair professionals into the team. So in that case, you can able to appoint a person responsible for regulatory compliance into your team who have experience of more than 5 years, which is the current requirement, and then you can able to and he will be the sole person responsible for get your product audited by the notified bodies. So further moving to that, there's also the requirement if you are a manufacturer of softwares, because software, standalone software or software which is integrated into the medical devices, they are also considered as a medical devices. So you have to fulfill the requirement of ISO 62304-2015, and you have to classify your products either class A, B, and C depending upon the risk. Class A will be a no injury or damage to the health. Class B will be injury is possible but not serious. Class C will be death or serious injury is possible. So depending upon the class, you have to validate your softwares as per the requirement of 62304-2015 requirements. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, I already talked about that. They are a general safety and performance requirement. We call it a GSPR. There are currently total 23 GSPR, which is released by the European Commissions. And depending upon to you, you have to prepare the entire chart, and accordingly you have to substantiate with the correct evidence, starting from the performance and safety data and the reduction of risk and the risk management systems and the device lifetime, the risk benefit ratios, all this type of information you have to provide in your whenever you are going to prepare the general safety and performance requirement for your products. Next slide. So typically, how the audit will go ahead. So once you have prepared the entire technical dossiers, you have to summarize it into a single file. And whenever the audit of C certifications will be happening, they will be happening in stage 1 and stage 2 part. In stage 1 audit, the auditor will be coming and they will only have an overview of your quality management system and overview of your technical dossiers or technical file which you have prepared, and they will give you only suggestions or any minor non-conformities during the stage 1 audit, and you have to rectify all this stage 1 audit within a stipulated time of around 60 days. And once you have closed all the non-conformities which is raised during the stage 1 audit, then the stage 2 audit will be carried out. Typically, the stage 2 audit will go for a typical period of 3 to 5 days, depending upon the number of products or the number of employees you are having it. So depending upon that, the audit will be carried out, and the stage 2 audit, they will be and that audit will be carried out for your quality management system as per the requirement of ISO 13485, plus the in-depth audit of your technical dossier will be happening. So at during that time, the auditor will give you the major non-conformity, and we have to close these non-conformities earliest as possible. After we have closed all these non-conformities, the auditor will submit all the report to the competent authority. It means that if we are choosing a TV should, so TV should is from the German notified body, so they will submit to the German headquarters. After their report will be get audited and reviewed by the authority which are sitting at the German headquarters. Only after that you will be going to receive the C certification. So typically the timeline of getting the C certifications range from 9 months to around 11 months. This is a typical timeline right now each and every notified body is taking right now for getting you a C certifications for your product. Next slide. Next slide, please. Brief the requirement of C certifications, how to go for the C certifications, what are the typical content you have to go, we have to prepare for preparing the file as per the requirement of C certifications. So if you have any other questions right now, I love to answer and close all your queries right now.
Thank you, Siddharth.
Now any other?
So,
Yeah,
in
thank you.
the interest of time, we'll take few questions from the participants. So, participants, if you have any questions, you can raise. Any questions from the participant side? Okay, so before we wrap the session, would request any participants to ask any queries from the participant side. Okay, Siddharth, I think there's no question from the audience side. So we've already collected some of the questions earlier. So just to get some ideas on that. So just to know what will be the challenges for the startups in receiving these C certification. What are the challenges that has been faced with the startups and in receiving these C certification requirements?
So which they are having into it, because suppose if I talk about the notified body cost, the currently the notified body cost will start from 15 lakhs to around 22 to 23 lakhs rupees. For 1 year, because your C certification is valid for. There will be a surveillance audit also will be happening for the first year. It will be ranging for the initial C certifications as per their surveillance fee. Hello.
Yes, Siddharth.
Yeah. So typically range from 15 to 22 to 23 lakh rupees. Again, depending upon the number of product and the classification of the products, it depends on many factors. The one factor is the number of employees they are having it, number of product they are having it, and the classification of product, whether it's a class 1, 2, or 3 product.
Okay, Siddharth. So yes. So one more question, like, how can a startup approach in receiving certification from a notified body, like a CE certification for their products? What will be the initial
Uh,
approaches by a startup?
And for the initial approach, the startup is that if you they have to first identify the notified body. Once they have identified a notified body, then their headquarters are already in India. Few of the notified body like TVSU, Renland, BSI, they have their headquarters over here in India. So they can able to approach their medical device department head over there to for getting the quotations and how they would function for getting the certificates for the. So typically they can upload directly the notified body, either the sales team or the auditors if they know.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Siddharth. So we are at the end of the session. So I would request all the participants to please fill the feedback form. This will allow us to improve the upcoming Knowledge Tuesday sessions. Also, would like to inform, like, with the upcoming Thursday, we are hosting a series called Ask Me Anything series at 5 p.m. The speaker for the session is Josh Scheffler, who's a co-founder of Launch in US Alliance and founding partner of Kendall Teams, on the topic how to potentially apply ideas from the US to your business in India. So we'd meet again on the Thursday evening. Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you for your time. It was really a great session, and we'll be uploading the video of the session in our YouTube channel. So, is it fine with you, Siddharth?
Thank you.
Thank you, Siddharth.
Yeah, it's completely fine. You can able to upload, no issue.
Yes. Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you for the time. Thank you, all the
Thank you.
participants.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you all the participants. Thank you.